Namaste. Blessed love and peace in Rastafari. Hethche. This is a 1 hour walkthrough of the Qur'an, part uno. So, this includes the first two surahs, Surah Al-Fatiha and Surah Al-Baqarah. And as an introductory note and context for this walkthrough, there are some notes and considerations that are beneficial to share. So the Quran is a collection of revelations that are provided to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and these revelations occur through a period of a number of decades. These are compiled. There are 114 surahs, and surahs are like chapters. There are 114, 114, and these surahs vary in length, from the longest one being almost 300, almost 300 verses or ayat. And then the briefest ones being as small as 3, 4, 5, 6 ayat or verses, and the topics range from myriads of experience of life, the universe, God, Allah, and further. Some provide very pragmatic guidance in terms of life, discipline, behavior. Some provide insight in terms of the nature of creation, the universe, relationship with Allah. Some provide histories and stories from the past. Some provide revealing and insight concerning the future and actually the eternal. So the nature of the topics of each of the surahs is different. Each of the surahs has a title. The title is provided after the surahs are revealed and as the surahs are compiled together. The sequence of the surahs is two things. One, it's other than a direct narrative, so it doesn't necessarily go from A to Z in terms of a story, like some of the other traditions, for example, the Torah or even the Gospels. So it's topical based upon the specific experience at that moment, the specific revelation. So that's one thing. It's other than a direct narrative. And the other thing is that the sequence of the surahs is also other than chronological, meaning that the first surah is other than the first surah that was actually revealed to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And so the surahs are actually organized with a certain rationale, and there's so much depths of what that rationale is, what the sequence is, and additionally. But in general, the first few surahs are the largest ones, generally speaking, and the first surahs provide a pragmatic guidance, an introduction to Islam, the faith and the practice, and then pragmatic guidance concerning prayer, righteousness, justice, fair commerce, and business, relationships, marriage, relationship between man and woman, raising family, and all these practical concerns regarding community experience and religious experience. And there's also additional explanation, as I said before, in terms of the nature of creation and Allah, and additionally. So the first few surahs are the largest generally and provide that type of information, and then that type of guidance, and then the surahs, the length of the surahs after that become further brief, and again cover many different topics accordingly. So the general framework of this series of 1 hour walkthroughs is to the first part being the first two surahs, as I mentioned, and then the second part being the next three surahs, because those include, again, much of that pragmatic guidance, topically particularly. The part three in this session, inshallah, God willing, is surahs 6 through 23, and then the fourth part being surahs 24 through 54, 24 a 54. Part 5, 5 is surahs 55 a 95, 55 to 95, and then part 6, the concluding part of this series, including surahs 96 a 114, 96 to 114. So that's the general intention. We see how that proceeds as we get into this, inshallah. And there it is. So we begin with a blessing. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allahu Akbar. 道可道非常道明可明非常明 Já Rastafari. Deus nos de qui es in cele sanctificato nomen tuum. Vaheguru Sanam. Baruch atah Elohim Eloheinu melech haolam asher katzanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu l'sok b'divrei Torah. Amen. Kyrie eleison. Savo mastu savajigatahim. Sabe sata bhavantu sukhitata. Fagabiyam. Aquaba upendo na amani. Fikiri na salami. Chinta dan peramen lebov me womajiga. Ubuntu shabana fakitku. Sheshe. Kama sunida damo arigato pelama yela walk and talk odoka shingu and gurmanaga. God, we thank you for all that you bless us. Ata jam ya yata afaname. Bado aho om shanti shanti shanti. Amen. So the text we are reading from today is an English translation provided from Yusuf Ali. This is actually the translation that I first read. There are a number of prominent translations. This one is completed. The first edition actually is completed, I think, around a century ago, actually. So this is the publication. But this translation is actually widely available. There are a number of different prints. But anyways, surah, the first surah. And the intention in this methodology is to say the title, the Arabic title, and some of the surahs have multiple titles. Or an alternative title, and then provide the English translation. That does also provide some indication or some guidance concerning the topic that is covered within the surah. So the first one, again, is Al-Fatiha, and it's also referred to as the opening chapter. This is actually the foundational prayer, I should say, a foundational prayer within Islam. It is recited every day. It is recited with every session offering salat 5 times a day. So I'm actually going to recite this in Arabic and then provide the English translation in full. It is 7 verses, or 7 ayat. In Arabic it is Bismillah ar-Rahmani ar-Rahim, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Amin, Ar-Rahmani Ar-Rahim, Maliki Yawma Ad-Din, Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in, Ihdina as-sirata al-mustaqim, Siratal ladzina an'amta alayhim ghayril maghdubi alayhim waladdallin. Amen. And then the English translation is this. In the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful. Praise be to Allah, the cherisher and sustainer of the worlds. Most gracious, most merciful, master of the day of judgment. Thee do we worship, and thine aid we seek. Show us the straight way, the way of those upon whom thou hast bestowed thy grace, those whose portion is not wrath and who go not astray. That is Surah numero uno, Al-Fatiha. We continue on to Surah Al-Baqarah, which is, the English translation is the heifer or the cow. And so this surah, each surah actually, except for one, I think it's surah, but we'll find, inshallah, we'll find out as we proceed. But all the surahs begin with the beginning blessing, which is Bismillah ar-Rahmani ar-Rahim. And so that's just the protocol, the guidance when studying from the Qur'an. So I share that at this moment. And then this particular surah begins, verse 1 is Alif Lam Mim. This is the book, in it is guidance, excuse me. This is the book, in it is guidance, sure without doubt to those who fear Allah, who believe in the unseen, are steadfast in prayer, and spend out of what we have provided for them, and who believe in the revelation sent to thee and sent before thy time, and in their hearts have the assurance of the hereafter. They are on true guidance from their Lord, and it is these who will prosper. So there's this affirmation of faith. Then there's a reference to those who reject faith, those who are referred to as non-believers. And there's a description of the hardness of heart of such individuals. And the Quran describes the characteristics of such individuals being selfish, greedy. And so rather than just a label and a binary, it's a matter of recognizing what the behavior is that is being addressed. And it's applicable to anybody, regardless of what that person is, self-described or otherwise. Anybody who's behaving in a selfish, greedy, hostile, hateful, delusional, otherwise harmful way, that is referred to, that is understood as a rejection of faith. And it essentially emanates from this selfishness. Fear is involved within it as well, but it's just those characteristics. And so that is what is described here. Those characteristics are described. Some of those characteristics are described in this continuing sequence in the beginning of this surah. And then there is a description of such individuals. There's justice. There's eventually such individuals receive the consequences of that behavior. And so that consequence may not necessarily be evident or evidenced by observers in this life or otherwise. So, but it's a matter of understanding that justice is manifested ultimately. So the purpose of that is providing assurance. And I'm doing a little bit of explanation here, but that's actually it's actually a summary of what is articulated here. And within much of the Quran, there are allusions, and allusion is like a reference to like the natural phenomena, or it's different than a metaphor, because a metaphor tends to be there tends to be a distinction between the phenomena that are being compared with each other, even though paradoxically or ironically, it's actually the similarity. Allusion is something of like further like merging, and so. We can just call these parables actually. So one of the ways in which the experience of those who are rejecting this call for compassion and honesty and altruism and continue to be entrenched in selfishness. It's described here in verse 19 is and here it's described as a similitude. Or another similitude is that of a rain-laden cloud from the sky. In it are zones of darkness and thunder and lightning. They press their fingers in their ears to keep out the stunning thunderclap, the while they are in terror of death. But Allah is ever round the rejecters of faith. The lightning all but snatches away their sight. Every time the light helps them, they walk therein, and when the darkness grows on them, they stand still. And if Allah willed, Allah could take away their faculty of hearing and seeing, for Allah hath power over all things. Again, it's a description of those who are being selfish, are being hateful, are being greedy, hiding from the truth of harmony, the truth of peacefulness and working with others, and get entrenched in the echo chambers of selfishness and collusion with each other. So, and denying and rejecting and hiding from the truth of peace. So again, it's the nature and the power of peace exists beyond the control of an individual, much like the conditions of nature. So even though such individuals may seem powerful and able to impose will upon other individuals, there's a further power, there's a further nature that those powerful potentates are actually fearful of and hiding from, but there's an inevitability with that. So there's much of that description throughout the Qur'an, and again, connection with nature and the natural elements and natural experience. There are addresses to those who challenge these proclamations of justice and peace and harmony, and one of those challenges is verse 23 is, and if ye are in doubt as to what we have revealed from time to time to our servant, meaning the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then produce a surah like thereunto, and call your witnesses or helpers if there are any besides Allah in your doubts, if your doubts are true. Then it continues on with verse 24, or ayat 24. But if ye cannot, and of a surety ye cannot, then fear the fire, whose fuel is men and stones, which is prepared for those who reject faith. This is addressing those, again, who are challenging the word and the deeds, the righteousness that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is proclaiming, and soliciting the provision of something similarly righteous amidst the corruption that prevails within society, and that is the fortitude, the formidability that is communicated through the Quran, that encourages and supports those who receive that message and share in that inclination towards peace and harmony. Then the next verse actually also provides the balance in that binary of admonition towards the selfishness and hostility, and then encouragement for the steadfastness in being peaceful and just and altruistic. And it can be referred to essentially, to be honest, as carrot and stick, but that's just what's communicated within the Quran. And so again, continuing further in verse 25, but give glad tidings to those who believe and work righteousness, that their portion is gardens beneath which rivers flow. Every time they are fed with fruits therefrom, they say, why, this is what we were fed with before. For they are given things in similitude, and they have therein companions pure and holy, and they abide therein forever. So this is something also that is very frequent within the Quran, which is the reference of the garden, and the experience of rewards beyond that which can be evidenced in this lifetime, encouraging the faith for staying peaceful and just and righteous. And that experience of the garden can also be further understood as simply the oneness with ultimate benevolence, the most merciful, and further, and that the descriptions of the garden are a temporal description for those who require that type of tangibility to experience even beyond words that peacefulness and the tranquility and that oneness. So again, that is also prevalent throughout the entirety of the Quran. Then there is the description of the relationship between Allah and each person, each being, and the encouragement for individual to be mindful of this relationship, and amidst all the trials, tribulations, all the binaries, the pleasures and pains, to be aware of this relationship, and honest, essentially. Verse 29 says, "It is Allah who hath created you, for you all things that are on earth." Further, Allah's design comprehended the heavens, and Allah gave order and perfection to the seven firmaments, and of all things Allah hath perfect knowledge. So then it goes into the narrative of the creation of Adam, and this is the narrative that is also shared within the Torah. Beginning with verse 30, "Behold, thy Lord said to the angels, I will create a vice region on earth. They said, Wilt thou place therein one who will make mischief therein and shed blood, whilst we do celebrate thy praises and glorify thy holy name? Allah said, I know what ye know not. And Allah taught Adam the names of all things, and Allah placed them before the angels and said, Tell me the names of these if you are right." So this is going into further detail concerning that scenario of Adam giving all things names, and the angels recognizing the abilities that Adam has compared to the angels. On verse 35 or ayat 35, it says, "We said, O Adam, dwell thou and thy wife in the garden, and eat of the bountiful things therein, as where and when ye will, but approach not this tree, or ye run into harm and transgression." And then it continues on with the same narrative within the Torah with ayat 36. "Then did Satan make them slip from the garden and get them out of the state of felicity in which they had been." So again, there's an affirmation of the narratives that are revealed within the Holy Scriptures and religiosity before the period of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So then there's an address towards the children of Israel in verse 40. "O children of Israel, call to mind the special favor which I bestowed upon you, and fulfill your covenant with me as I fulfill my covenant with you, and fear none but me." And this is also continued throughout the Qur'an, the reference to preceding religious communities, including the children of Israel, including Christians, and progressing from the revelations that are shared with Abraham Avinu, with Moshe Rabbeinu, with Jesus, and continuing with Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then with verse 42, there are some further pragmatic guidance. "And cover not truth with falsehood, nor conceal the truth when ye know what it is. And be steadfast in prayer, practice regular charity, and bow down your heads with those who bow down in worship." This is again continuing to address the children of Israel. There's reference to the preceding experience with Pharaoh. Verse 49, "And remember, we delivered you from the people of Pharaoh. They set you hard tasks and punishments, slaughtered your sons, and let your women folk live. Therein was a tremendous trial from your Lord." So then again continuing, "And remember, we divided the sea for you and saved you and drowned Pharaoh's people within your very sight." Then so there's reference to Moshe Rabbeinu. "And remember, we appointed 40 nights for Moshe, and in his absence he took the calf for worship, and he did grievous wrong." So one point to recognize also is that there is admonishment towards communicated within the Quran towards the children of Israel, and that can be understood as a premise for the binary between Muslims and Jewish brethren, the children of Israel. However, it's also appropriate to recognize that there's admonishment of the children of Israel within the Torah. And so it's not an admonishment of people per se. It's an admonishment of behavior and rebellion. Because throughout the Torah, when we look at the narrative of the Torah, The children of Israel rebel against Moshe Rabbeinu, against Elohim, and are admonished because of that, rebuked much further severe than what's articulated within the whole of the Qur'an, to be honest. Again, it's other than the Quran is doing the same thing that the Torah does in terms of admonishing the behavior. And so it can be perceived and interpreted and utilized as antagonism and a rationale for hostility between Muslims and Jews, and Muslims and children of Israel. But in actuality, it's a matter of looking at the behavior. And it's not a specific admonishment or curse towards a person, any person. It's a curse and admonishment towards the behavior. So, and does continue through the Quran as well. But it's appropriate to recognize it's the same thing that is done within the Torah as well. And the narrative of the calf is one example of this. This is referencing. There are a lot of references to the narratives within the Torah. So again, just like when the narrative of the calf is included within the Torah, and there's a rebuking in Elohim, Hashem, Adonai communicates to Moshe Rabbeinu the intention of annihilating the entirety of the children of Israel and creating a new tribe of people. That's that same type of admonishment. Now, that's not what happens, but that's what's articulated specifically in the Quran, specifically in the Torah, because that the action, the behavior, is a direct abrogation, a direct violation of the covenant that is established between Bnei Israel and Elohim. So that is what is articulated specifically, explicitly within the Torah, and it's communicated here within the Quran as well, being a continuity, a continuation of that communication of the experience of holiness on this earth and the narrative. So it's beneficial to recognize it in that context. So again, verse 51, ayat 51, and remember we appointed 40 nights for Moshe, and in his absence he took the calf for worship, and he did grievous wrong. Continuing on, even then did we forgive you. There was a chance for you to be grateful. And remember, we gave Moshe the scripture and the criterion between right and wrong. There was a chance for you to be guided aright. So there are additional interpretations of what the implications of this guidance is. One thing to mention at the moment, actually, to be just for clarity, the we. The we is the voice of Allah, but also that includes the heavenly, the angels, and further. So that's the collective we, and that also is comparable to the articulation of the first person plural within the Torah, particularly within Bereshit, the first book, and particularly the first portion or parsha within the Torah. So it's other than a polytheistic pluralism. It is a monotheistic proclamation that includes a further collective of the celestial. So that's pretty accurate. It might be somewhat coded, but that's actually it. And I'm going to leave it at that and to continue on with this reading, this walkthrough. So it continues on with the narrative of Moshe Rabbeinu. And again, it's the narrative is very similar to that which is articulated within the Torah. There's reference to eating the manna and the quails within the wilderness. Finding the water after being without water, being provided with the 12 springs. Some of the articulations within the Quran that reference the same narratives that are included within the Torah. There are some distinctions, to be honest. Some of the sequence is distinct, and so many people might refer to that as contradictions or conflicts of proclamations. It's simply a matter of understanding the further congruence, and may be other than immediately evident, but and also much of it is comparatively minute. Like the basics are there, and so much of the distinctions are comparatively further details. So that continues on with describing the narrative of Moshe Rabbeinu and the children of Israel. Then there is the proclamation in Ayat 62, it says, those who believe in the Qur'an and those who follow the Jewish scriptures and the Christians and the Sabians, any who believe in Allah and the last day and work righteousness shall have their reward with their God. On them shall be no fear, nor shall they grieve. So right there's a direct, explicit proclamation in support of Jewish brethren, the children of Israel, as well as Christians, recognizing that each of the teachings, each of the ways that are provided in the Torah, in the Bible, the Gospels, is one of righteousness. And so there's cohesion and cooperation between these teachings of Israel and Christians, as well as with the Quran and Muslims. So then there's reference to Shabbat continuing on, and further narrative concerning Moshe Rabbeinu. There's reference specifically to Moshe Rabbeinu when he first leaves Egypt. Well, excuse me. So that's actually inaccurate. It's this particular verse I'm looking at is referencing something else, but it is still involving the narrative of Moshe Rabbeinu. And I'll share here in verse 74, 74, again, the connection between the personal, individual experience, that can be also very abstract, and then the connection with nature and the transformation. So it says, it's describing, again, the transgressions, the disobedience, the rebellion, and then it says, and again, Ayat 74, 74, thenceforth were your hearts hardened. They became like a rock, and even worse in hardness. For amongst rocks there are some from which rivers gush forth. Others there are which, when split asunder, send forth water. And others which sink for fear of Allah. And Allah is not unmindful of what ye do. Then there's the description. Now this, it transitions into the contemporary experience of dealing with people who are involved in trickery, who are lying, pretending to believe and be people of faith, but at the same time are deceitful and having secret motives, including with each other. 76 Ayat 76 says, behold, that when they meet the men of faith, they say, we believe, but when they meet each other in private, they say, shall you tell them what Allah hath revealed to you, that they may engage you in argument about it before your Lord? Do ye not understand their aim? So it's addressing, again, the contemporary experience of the Ummah, the collective of Muslims at that moment, what the Ummah is experiencing amidst the trials and tribulations of that day. And again, it's communicating the consequences of that type of treachery. And then, again, there's the affirmation of and encouragement for perseverance with peace and honesty and altruism with Ayat 82, 82. But those who have faith and work righteousness, they are companions of the garden. Therein shall they abide forever. So again, that garden is that primordial and that transcendent experience of harmony and tranquility, peace, safety, comfort. Then there's returning to the narrative of the children of Israel, the reference to the covenant established with Allah. And then there is, again, reference to a sequence of prophetic messages in Ayat 87, 87. We gave Moshe the book and followed him up with a succession of messengers. We gave Jesus, the son of Mary, clear signs and strengthened him with the Holy Spirit. Is it that whenever there comes to you an apostle with what ye yourselves desire not, ye are puffed up with pride? Some ye call impostors, and others ye slay. So it's again referencing the preceding revelations and the reception of those revelations by the people. One of those responses is that's admonished in verse 90, 9, ayat 90, 90. Miserable is the price for which they have sold their souls, in that they deny the revelation which Allah has sent down, in insolent envy that Allah of Allah's grace should send it to any of Allah's servants Allah pleases. Thus have they drawn upon themselves wrath upon wrath, and humiliating is the punishment of those who reject faith. So consideration here is the miserable is the price for which they have sold their souls. Because following this revelation of truth and peace and reconciliation means letting go of a lot of the riches and advantages that people have in this life, and that's very difficult to do. Jesus talks about the camel, the rich man walking through the eye of the camel walking through the eye of the needle. So there is reference to the angel Jibril or Gabriel, as is referred to in English, as the angel is referred to in English. Surah 97. Say, whoever is an enemy to Jibril, for he brings down the revelation to thy heart by Allah's will, a confirmation of what went before, and guidance and glad tidings for those who believe. Whoever is an enemy to Allah and Allah's angels and prophets, to Jibril and Michael, lo, Allah is an enemy to those who reject faith. So it's referencing again the method in which revelation is shared. There's the experience of the angels. There's the confirmation of that experience of the angels, the heavenly, and the relationship between earth and heaven, particularly with the communication with the angels. Then the Quran shares the narrative of Solomon. References Babylon. It references the pagan cultures of the time. Again, a reference to Moshe Rabbeinu. Much of the basic topic is, again, sharing the message and the response to the message from people. So in Surah 111, there's a description of actually look at Ayat 109. This is again, a lot of this is reconciling the conflict of spiritual awakening and navigating through the challenges that authorities provide to individuals who are experiencing, who receive that message, and who receive and proceed through that spiritual awakening. There are a lot of challenges, a lot of criticism, a lot of admonishment and oppression, and further. So this is providing guidance, fortitude, rationales, and further strength to proceed in that navigation of the conflicts and criticisms, in the different tactics of manipulation, and admonishments that are provided from conventional leaders that are corrupt and are trying to continue to subdue individuals. So it's a matter of receiving guidance through that condemnation and corruption to proceed and continue in a path of faith and peace and harmony. So again, in Ayat 109, quite a number of people of the book wish they could turn you people back to infidelity after ye have believed, from selfish envy after the truth hath become manifest unto them. But forgive and overlook till Allah accomplishes Allah's purpose, for Allah hath power over all things. And be steadfast in prayer and regular in charity. And whatever benevolence ye send forth for your souls before you, you shall find it with Allah, for Allah sees well all that ye do. And they say, none shall enter paradise unless he be a Jew or a Christian. Those are their vain desires. Say, produce your proof if ye are truthful. Nay, whoever submits his whole self to Allah and is a doer of benevolence, he will get his reward with his Lord. On such shall be no fear, nor shall they grieve. So again, those proclamations of even concerning the hereafter and the manipulations, it is addressing those things that are communicated from the leadership, and that basically holds the carrot and stick in front of people, and as a way of conjuring submission and obedience amongst the people towards just the leaders rather than necessarily towards the teachings of righteousness. So there's emphasis here that it's not a matter of abiding by the authority of an individual, but simply being benevolent, simply being honest, compassionate, conducting regular prayers to have strength in that compassion and honesty, and through that Allah sees that Allah is all-knowing, and there is a reward beyond what can be evidenced, beyond what can be seen, and so it's a matter of having faith in that and strengthening that faith through the practice. Then there's reference to the masjid, the mosque, and the practices of obstructing people from conducting prayer, and further explanation about the different challenges, the different questions, the different criticisms that are communicated during this period. So then there is a reference to Abraham Avinu, verse 7:24, and remember that Abraham was tried by his Lord with certain commands which he fulfilled. And continuing on with the narrative of Abraham, there's reference to Ishmael, and the lineages that are established from Ishmael. There's reference to essentially Yitzhak as well as Yaakov, Yitzhak Avinu, Yaakov Avinu. So I'll reference it here. Ayat 132 begins here, verse 132. And this was the legacy that Abraham left to his sons, and so did Yaakov. O my sons, Allah hath chosen the faith for you, then die not except in the faith of Islam. Were ye witnesses when death appeared before Yaakov? Behold, he said to his sons, what will ye worship after me? They said, we shall worship thy God and the God of thy fathers, of Abraham, Ishmael, and Yitzhak, the one true Allah. To Allah we bow in Islam. So it's beneficial also to recognize that Islam, particularly here, as it's articulated here and throughout the Quran, Islam is other than a specific religion. It is per se. It is simply submitting one's ego, submitting one's ambitions, submitting one's selfishness for the sake and to the power of the greatest whole, the oneness of Allah. So then the word that's utilized to describe it is less significant than the actual phenomena and act that is being articulated. So when it is said here that each of these proclamations are made from the forebears, our forebears, it is other than what might be understood in today's parlance in terms of each one saying, proclaiming to be a Muslim, as it is known, particularly as a political identity and a geopolitical and other identities, is a matter of articulating that acceptance of the covenant. So there's that. Now there it begins to make further reference to the aggregate of these predecessors, and communicate that aggregate experience of revelation as being synonymous, congruent, and continuing with what the Prophet Muhammad shares, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So then there's reference to the Qibla and the Ummah providing prayer. So there's, again, then we get into some of the guidance, and there are some very beneficial aphorisms, proverbs, like proclamations that are considerably resonant. Looking at ayat 148, verse 148, to each is a goal to which Allah turns him, then strive together as in a race towards all that is benevolent. Wheresoever ye are, Allah will bring you together, for Allah hath power over all things. From whensoever thou startest forth, turn thy face in the direction of the sacred masjid. That is indeed the truth from thy Lord, and Allah is not unmindful of what ye do. But particularly the first verse that I recite here is a matter of recognizing that people have different talents, different guidance in this life. And so regardless of what those details are, it's a matter of focusing on the benevolence of those deeds, the benevolence of that guidance and path. And when one focuses on the benevolence of those acts, then it's benevolence. And intrinsically, inevitably, harmoniously, ultimately, there's unity, because it's all benevolence, regardless of the specificity of what people are doing. And the knowledge of that benevolence, the affirmation of that benevolence, is felt just in the heart, and it's known in that respect. There's description about again, perseverance, and progressing through the trials and tribulations, looking at ayat 153, verse 153, and continuing. O ye who believe, seek help with patient perseverance and prayer, for Allah is with those who patiently persevere. And say not of those who are slain in the way of Allah, they are dead, nay, they are living, though ye perceive it not. Be sure we shall test you with something of fear and hunger, some loss in treasures or lives, or the fruits of your toil, but give glad tidings to those who patiently persevere. Who say, when afflicted with calamity, to Allah we belong, and to Allah is our return. They are those in whom descend blessings from Allah and mercy, and they are the ones that receive guidance. So again, even when experiencing trials and tribulations, rather than being despaired, rather than cursing Allah rather than cursing the ones who are doing it, rather than cursing anyone, even or particularly oneself. It's a matter of just reckoning, okay, it's a trial, it's a tribulation. How do we get through this? And that's the test. That's the proof of faith. And it's not the purpose. The purpose is not to prove one's faith, but in persevering, that is evidence of the practice of faith. So again, in verse 64, we have again reference to nature. So we have all these proclamations, the challenges, the guidance, and then we get back into the nature. And the natural references tend to be a cleansing thing. There's often references to rejuvenation, renewal, the healing, and the life that's provided through water specifically, particularly coming from that region of the Middle East. And there's a naturally intrinsic healing quality just when talking about nature that helps to reconcile these abstract dissonance that exists within the sentient cognition and competitions amongst sentience. So again, here in ayat 64, verse 164, behold, in the creation of the heavens and the earth, in the alternation of the night and the day, in the sailing of ships through the ocean for the benefit of mankind, in the rain which Allah sends down from the skies, and the life which Allah gives therewith to an earth that is dead, in the beasts of all kinds that Allah scatters through the earth, in the change of the winds and the clouds which they trail like their servants between the sky and the earth, here indeed are signs for a people that are wise. So then there's the reference of people who believe in things and contravations that are different from that ultimate reality, that oneness, that singularity of harmony of the universe of Allah. And so there's description of that. There's description of dietary guidance. And the Quran is actually very proactive in terms of communicating the consumption of meat, animals, but also very strict in terms of the actually what type of animals, particularly actually, and also balance and moderation and the appropriateness of how the animals are slaughtered and the portions. So, and again, ayat 172, verse 172. O ye who believe, eat of the benevolent things that we have provided for you, and be grateful to Allah if it is Allah ye worship. Allah hath only forbidden you dead meat and blood and the flesh of swine, and that on which any other name hath been invoked besides that of Allah. But if one is forced by necessity without willful disobedience nor transgressing due limits, then is he guiltless, for Allah is all forgiving, most merciful. And then we get into a part of this particular surah that gets into the further pragmatic guidance about how to live. So we look at ayat 177, verse 177. It is not righteousness that ye turn your faces towards east or west, but it is righteousness to believe in Allah and the last day, and the angels and the book and the messengers, to spend of your substance out of love for Allah, for your kin, for orphans, for the needy, for the wayfarer, for those who ask, and for the ransom of slaves, to be steadfast in prayer and practice regular charity, and fulfill the contracts which ye have made, and to be firm and patient in pain or suffering and adversity, and throughout all periods of panic. Such are the people of truth, the fearing of Allah. And then it continues on the next ayat, which describes formula for justice. O ye who believe, the law of equality is prescribed to you in cases of murder, the free for the free, the slave for the slave, the woman for the woman. But if any remission is made by the brother of the slain, then grant any reasonable demand and compensate him with handsome gratitude. This is a concession and a mercy from your Lord. After this, whoever exceeds the limits shall be in grave penalty. So essentially, there's the guidance of the ancient maxim of an eye for an eye, the capital punishment for the one who commits murder, but at the same time, there's guidance that is further subtle about forgiveness and the higher practice of forgiveness, not necessarily a murderer, going scot-free or without any kind of consequence. But rather than committing capital punishment, prescribing another methodology, another consequence, wherein even the murderer is able to continue living, but with due protocols. So that's a little bit of further articulation. It's also communicated additionally within the Qur'an, but it's referenced here, so I just make that communication. From this, there's direction concerning inheritance, some guidance concerning how to make inheritance. It gets further detailed later in the Quran. Then there's a description of fasting, particularly Ramadan. So again, Ayat 183, verse 183. O ye believe, fasting is prescribed to you as it was prescribed to those before you, that ye may learn self-restraint, fasting for a fixed number of days. But if any of you is ill or on a journey, the prescribed number should be made up from days later. For those who can do it with hardship is a ransom. The feeding of one that is indigent. But he that will give further of his own free will, it is better for him. And it is better for you that ye fast, if ye only knew. Ramadan is the month in which was sent down the Qur'an as a guide to mankind, also clear signs for guidance and judgment between right and wrong. So every one of you who is present at his home during that month should spend it in fasting. But if anyone is ill or on a journey, the prescribed period should be made up by later days. Allah intends every facility for you. Allah does not want to put you to difficulties. Allah wants you to complete the prescribed period and to glorify Allah, in that Allah has guided you. And perchance ye shall be grateful. When my servants ask thee concerning me, I am indeed close to them. I listen to the prayer of every supplicant when he calleth on me. Let them also with a will listen to my call, and believe in me, that they may walk in the right way. It continues on within Ayat 187. Permitted to you on the night of the fast is the approach to your wives. They are your garments, and ye are their garments. Allah knoweth what ye used to do secretly amongst yourselves, but Allah turned to you and forgave you. So now associate with them and seek what Allah hath ordained for you, and drink and eat until the white thread of dawn appear to you, distinct from its black thread. Then complete your fast till the night appears, but do not associate with your wives whilst ye are in retreat in the masjids. Those are limits set by Allah. Approach not nigh thereto. Thus doth Allah make clear Allah's signs to men, that they may learn self-restraint. It continues on with pragmatic guidance. Fight in the cause of Allah those who fight you, but do not transgress limits, for Allah loveth not transgressors. It continues on with describing fighting, and again, it's beneficial to recognize, again, this is in the context of defense, of fighting those who are hostile and who are initiating fighting, and to not be afraid, to be courageous, to be forthright, but also to be disciplined. And so this is the first occasion which this is specifically articulated within the Qur'an in this surah, so I'm going to further recite the passage, and it addresses a very foundational or very fundamental principle within Islam, which is oppression is worse than death. So it's a matter of not being afraid and recognizing that it's worse to live under oppressive conditions than to actually die, because living under oppressed conditions and acquiescing to that is straying from that path of oneness and truth and justice, and as actually cooperating and practicing the corruption. So again, it begins with Surah Ayat 191, verse 191. And slay them wherever you catch them, and turn them out from where they have turned you out. For tumult and oppression are worse than slaughter. But fight them not at the sacred masjid, unless they first fight you there. But if they fight you, slay them. Such is the reward of those who suppress faith. But if they cease, Allah is all-forgiving, most merciful. And fight them on until there is no further tumult or oppression, and there prevail justice and faith in Allah. But if they cease, let there be no hostility except to those who practice oppression. So that pretty much is what is explained. Then there is the description of Hajj, the performance of pilgrimage, 196, verse 196, and complete the Hajj or Umrah and the service of Allah. But if you are prevented from completing it, send an offering for offering such as ye may find, and do not shave your heads until the offering reaches the place of offering. So again, even within these prescriptions, whether it's Ramadan, whether it's Salat prayer, whether it's performing Hajj, these are commanded, but at the same time, when there's recognition that it may be difficult for some, and so it's a matter of the purpose of it is not to be, again, oppressive in these commands, to guide and encourage and to hold steadfast in the appropriateness of this. But at the same time, when there's significant difficulty, when there's due difficulty, that there's understanding and patience, and so it's a matter of doing what people are able to do accordingly. And it may be considered that the purpose of Islam is other than obedience or submission in and of itself. It is oneness, harmony, and so again, patience and understanding is part of the balance within that. It's not an authoritarian experience that is particularly that is to be replicated or imitated. It is a oneness. So there's the description here. There's the type of man. This is looking at 204, ayat 204. There is the type of man whose speech about this world's life may dazzle thee, and he calls Allah to witness about what is in his heart, yet is he the most contentious of enemies. When he turns his back, his aim everywhere is to spread mischief through the earth and destroy crops and cattle, but Allah loveth not mischief. When it is said to him, fear Allah, that he is led by arrogance to further crime. Enough for him is hell, an evil bed indeed to lie on. And there is the type of man who gives his life to earn the pleasure of Allah, and Allah is full of kindness to Allah's devotees. Later on, in 209, ayat 209, if ye backslide after the clear signs that have come to you, then know that Allah is exalted in power wise. So it's a very practical and actual 100 type of acknowledgement that there's this treachery, there's trickery, there's the tendency within oneself to backslide, to trip up on occasion, and so again, still continuing in the path. 212, ayat 212. The life of this world is alluring to those who reject faith, and they scoff at those who believe, but the righteous will be above them on the day of resurrection, for Allah bestows Allah's abundance without measure on whom Allah will. Mankind was one single nation, and Allah sent messengers with glad tidings and warnings, and with them Allah sent the book in truth to judge between people in matters wherein they differed. So there's purposefulness within everything. There's purposefulness within the tribulations. and there's guidance for perseverance. And the Quran here continues with pragmatic guidance. One specifically concerning intoxications, 219, ayat 219. They ask concerning wine and gambling. Say, in them is great sin and some benefit for men, but the sin is greater than the benefit. They ask thee about how much they are to spend. Say, what is beyond your needs? Thus doth Allah make clear to you Allah's signs in order that ye may consider their bearings on this life and the hereafter. So, again, rather than just saying absolutely no alcohol, no this, that, and the other, saying, there is some benefit. People relax, people might have lightheartedness or whatever, but at the same time, people get hurt, people are harmful, people become enslaved to those intoxications, and that's much further worse. That's much further harmful than the actual benefit. So it's a very actualistic experience, a very actualistic guidance. Like, there's both of these, but it's better to be without it. And then even within providing charity, it's how much should one provide? Well, recognize what you need, not just what you want and what you're saving up for, but what you need at this moment. And then whatever else you have, give it. So, again, there's a resonant truth within this. Then we get into the guidance concerning marriage. There's reference to orphans, and then continue on with 221, ayat 221. Don't marry unbelieving women, idolaters, until they believe. A slave woman who believes is better than unbelieving woman, even though she allures you. Nor marry your girls to unbelievers until they believe. A man slave who believes is better than an unbeliever, even though he allure you. Unbelievers do but beckon you to the fire, but Allah beckons by Allah's grace to the garden of bliss and forgiveness, and makes Allah's signs clear to mankind that they may celebrate Allah's praise. There's guidance concerning women's menstruation, and then continuing on, your wives are 223. Your wives are as a tilth unto you, so approach your tilth when or how ye will, but do some benevolent act for your souls beforehand, and fear Allah, and know that ye are to meet Allah in the hereafter, and give these benevolent tidings to those who believe. So, very, very proactive, very prominent, pronounced in advocating and guiding union between man and woman in marriage, sexual interaction. Very pragmatic. This is part of life. This is part of procreation, and guidance on how to do it in an appropriate way. There is also the description of divorce and the process and methodology of separation between a husband and wife when there are unreconcilable differences. It goes in considerable detail about different scenarios and how it continues forth, including Moors continue to provide to nurse the children, and how long, and arrangements of compensation accordingly. That actually continues in considerable detail for many ayat. And then from there, it continues on with 245, ayat 245, talking about, again, charity, but not just charity, but just sharing of resources, sharing of materiality. And it's referred to as this term of loaning to Allah, a beautiful loan. And so the idea is like forwarding one's materiality to others of this world, and recognizing that in doing that, one is actually providing it to Allah. And it's a rather perhaps absurd concept of how can somebody loan anything to like Allah. But it's a matter of recognizing that when one provides it to those that seem lowly, that it's actually sharing it with Allah. So who is he that will loan to Allah a beautiful loan, which Allah will double unto his credit and multiply many times? It is Allah that giveth you want or plenty, and to Allah shall be your return. from this, there is reference to Moshe Rabbeinu again. There is reference to David, and particularly the episode concerning David and Goliath. There's another warning concluding at this point with us, Surah 254, Ayat 254. O ye who believe, spend out of the bounties we have provided for you before the day comes when no bargaining will avail, nor friendship, nor intercession. Those who reject faith, they are the wrongdoers. So again, there's the tendency of conjuring these ideas of equivocation, of pretenses, of hiding what one is doing, pretending that as long as nobody finds out, there's no consequences. But it's the message here is piercing those deceptions, self-illusions, and encouraging honesty, because that is the best policy. Here's another ayat that is rather well resonant, often referenced. 256, ayat 256. Let there be no compulsion in religion. Truth stands out clear from error. Whoever rejects evil and believes in Allah hath grasped the most trustworthy handhold that never breaks, and Allah heareth and knoweth all things. You can't make somebody believe anything. Truth has to be understood and recognized by the individual. So all the best one can do is live that truth and inspire people to see that and believe in that. So there's you can't forcefully convert anybody to believe anything. That's enslavement. It's false. It's temporary. It's undone eventually. Further reference to Avraham Avinu. A parable here is shared, 261, ayat 261. The parable of those who spend their substance in the way of Allah is that of a grain of corn. It groweth 7 ears, and each ear hath 100 grains. Allah giveth manifold increase to whom Allah pleaseth, and Allah careth for all, and Allah knoweth all things. So again, we have the further reference to nature. Further continues later. Actually, the next ayat, those who spend their substance in the cause of Allah and follow not up their gifts with reminders of their generosity or with injury, for them their reward is with their Lord. On them there shall be no fear, nor shall they grieve. Continuing on, kind words in the covering of faults are better than charity followed by injury. Allah is free of all wants, and Allah is most forbearing. O ye who believe, cancel not your charity by reminders of your generosity or by injury, like those who spend their substance to be seen of men, but believe neither in Allah nor in the last day. So again, it's not just a matter of being charitable and then bragging about it or making people feel less in receiving that charity, but just sharing it and not making a big deal of it, being modest. And then it shares in 265, ayat 265. And the likeness of those who spend their substance seeking to please Allah and to strengthen their souls is as a garden, high and fertile. Heavy rain falls on it, but makes it yield a double increase of harvest. And if it receives not heavy rain, light moisture sufficeth it. Allah seeth well whatever ye do. Does any of you wish that he should have a garden with date palms and vines and streams flowing underneath and all kinds of fruit, whilst he is stricken with old age and his children are not strong enough to look after themselves, that it should be caught in a whirlwind? That it should be caught in a whirlwind with fire therein and be burnt up. Thus doth Allah make clear to you Allah's signs that ye may consider. O ye who believe, give of the benevolent things which ye have honorably earned, and of the fruits of the earth which ye have produced for you, which we have produced for you. So again, this guidance of balance, generosity, in recognizing everything is impermanent, continually being reviewed, tested, remembering the balance and the harmony. Then there's the specific description of who qualifies for receiving charity, who zakat specifically. 263, ayat 273. Charity is for those in need who in Allah's cause are restricted from travel and cannot move about in the land, seeking for trade or work. The ignorant man thinks because of their modesty that they are free from want. Thou shalt know them by their unfailing mark. They beg not importunately from all and sundry, and whatever of benevolent ye give, be assured Allah knoweth it well. Let's see, there's another description that says it in further detail. It may be here or it might be in another surah. Describes debt and the appropriateness of forgiving the debt. If the debtor is in a difficulty, grant him time till it is easy for him to repay. But if you remit it by way of charity, that is best for you if you only knew. Then there's this description of making contracts with people, writing it down, having witnesses of the contracts. Again, another. This is actually the conclusion of this surah. After all these, again, this is the largest surah, the surah with the largest number of ayat. And so here we have the conclusion of this introduction to Islam. On no soul doth Allah place a burden greater than it can bear. It gets every benefit that it earns, and it suffers every ill that it earns. Pray, our Lord, condemn us not if we forget or fall into error. Our Lord, lay not on us a burden like that which thou didst lay on those before us. Our Lord, lay not on us a burden greater than we have strength to bear. Blot out our sins and grant us forgiveness. Have mercy on us. Thou art our protector. Help us against those who stand against faith. That is the conclusion of Surah Al-Baqarah numero 2 from the Qur'an. Alhamdulillah, Ar-Rahmani Ar-Rahim. Allah Wabha. Dao ke dao fe chong dao min ke min fe chong min ja Rastafari. Deus nos de quies in chala santo vakito nomen tu vahegu salam. Baruch ata Elohim Eloheinu melech halam asher katzon b'mitzvotav v'tzivam l'sok b'dvaray Torah. Amen. Kyrie eleison sevamastu savajigatahi sabe sata bhavantu sukitata. Vagabia Aquaba upendo namani fakir nesilami chinta dam per men li above me wumajika. Ubuntu shabana fakitka. Sheshin kamasunida damo aragato pelama yelo wakato tokodoko shingu gomanigat. God, we thank you for all that you bless us. Ata jamia yatafanami. Mado home om shanti shanti shanti. Amen. All thanks and praise to the Most High Elohim. Respect and honor to all our ancestors, all our prophets, all our sages, past and present, known and unknown. Respect and honor to His Majesty Haile Selassie I. Respect and honor to Her Majesty Wise Aramanan. Blessed love and peace in Rastafari. One perfect love. Namaste. Assalamu alaikum. Medo.